fool for you. I will run along behind you like some half-wit, making you look clever, if that's what you mean. But dear God above, you will hold yourself to a higher standard.
Why?
Because people need you to.
Mr. Holmes, telegram, Mr. Holmes.
What is it? What's wrong?
It's Mary.
Oh, I'm getting scared.
He went far. He went really far for this.
What the devil?
I found them.
Great. God, what is this place?
My theory is that Mrs. Ricoletti had help from her friends. What do they want to accomplish?
Why don't we go and find out?
Sorry, I could never resist a gong or a touch of the dramatic.
Never have guessed.
Though it seems you share my enthusiasm in that regard. Amelia Ricoletti shot herself, then apparently returned from the grave and killed her husband. So, how was it done? Let's take the events in order. She places one of the revolvers in her mouth while actually firing the other into the ground. An accomplice sprays the curtains with blood, and thus her apparent suicide is witnessed by the frightened crowd below. A substitute corpse bearing a strong resemblance to Mrs. Ricoletti takes her place and is later transported to the morgue, a grubby little suicide of little interest to Scotland Yard. Meanwhile, the real Mrs. Ricoletti slips away. Mrs. Ricoletti persuaded a cab driver, someone who knew her, to intercept her husband outside his favorite opium den. Perfect stage for a perfect drama.
Who are you? What do you want? Amelia? Oh!
A perfect positive identification.
Oh.
Swiftly now. Notice.
All that remained was to substitute the real Mrs. Ricoletti for the corpse in the morgue. This time, should anyone attempt to identify her, it would be positively, absolutely her.
But why would she do that? Die to prove a point?
Every great cause has martyrs. Every war has suicide missions, and make no mistake, this is war. One half of the human race at war with the other. The invisible army hovering at our elbow, ignored, patronized, disregarded,
Is it the enemy that
not
Marco was
allowed
speaking
so
about?
much as a vote.
The women.
Yeah.
Because they are oppressed, so.
Army nonetheless.
That's why he said that they are
Cecily
right.
Watson, Mycroft was right. This is a war we must lose.
She was dying.
Who was?
Amelia Ricoletti. There were clear signs of consumption. I doubt she was long for this world.
So she decided to make her death count. She was already familiar with the secret societies of America and was able to draw on their methods of fear and intimidation to publicly, very publicly, confront Sir Eustace Carmichael with the sins of his past.
He knew her out in the States. And then he had his way.
She is a woman pretending to be a man.
And
That's what
threw her
Watson
over.
was hinting at
Left her
earlier.
abandoned and penniless.
But the bride, Holmes, we saw her.
Yes, Watson, we did. The sound of breaking glass. Not a window. Just an old theatrical trick.
It cannot be true, Holmes. It cannot.
No, it can't. It's called Pepper's Ghost. A simple reflection in glass of a living, breathing person. Their only mistake was breaking the glass when they removed it. Look around you. This room is full of brides. Once she had risen, anyone could be her.
Yeah.
The avenging ghost. A legend to strike terror into the heart of any man with malicious intent. This is the work of a single-minded person. Someone who knew firsthand about Sir Eustace's mental cruelty. The dark secret kept from all but her closest friends, including Amelia Ricoletti, the woman her husband wronged all those years before. Isn't that right, Lady Carmichael?
Oh.
One small detail doesn't quite make sense to me, however. Why engage me to prevent a murder you intended to commit.
Doesn't quite make sense. Doesn't quite make sense.
Of course it doesn't make sense. It's not real.
Oh, Sherlock. Peekaboo. What the hell is going on? Is this silly enough for you yet? Gothic enough? Mad enough?
That
Even
was
for
all in
you?
his head, so...
It doesn't make sense, Sherlock. Because it's not real. None of it.
What's he talking about?
This is all in your
This
mind.
is the Watson we know from our time.
Sherlock. Holmes.
You're dreaming.
Oh, I see.
Back at
Still
the
not
Wrecking Ball
awake.
Falls.
He never managed to beat him, so he's always gonna go back here.
Too deep, Sherlock. Way too deep. Congratulations, you'll be the first man in history to be buried in his own mind palace.
What are you?
You know what I am. I'm Moriarty, the Napoleon of crime.
Moriarty's dead.
Not in your mind. I'll never be dead there. You once called your brain a hard drive. Well, say hello to the virus. This is how we end, you and I. Always here. Always together. I am your weakness! I keep you down! Every time you stumble, every time you fail, when you're weak, I am there!
Gosh. Oh my gosh.
Don't try to fight it! It has to be together, doesn't it? At the end, it's always just you and me!
Professor, if you wouldn't mind stepping away from my friend, I do believe he finds your attention a shade annoying.
He's losing himself, but he's always gonna have someone to bring him back.
There's always two of us. Don't you read the Strand? On your knees, Professor. Time you woke up, Sherlock. I'm a storyteller. I know when I'm in one.
Of course.
Get rid of him.
It was my turn.
Good, sir.
So how do you plan to wake up?
Oh. I should think like this.
When you fall,
Between you and me, John, I always survive a fall.
But how?
Elementary, my dear Watson.
Finally, I just said it. Élémentaire, mon cher.
You forget Watson.
Oh, you can say it too.
Élémentaire, mon cher Watson.
Still in the plane.
Miss me?
Sherlock, you all right?
Yes, of course I am. Why wouldn't I be?
She probably just OD'd. She should be in hospital.
No time. I have to go to Baker Street now. Reality's back.
I almost hope he is. If it'll save her from this.
No need for that now. Got the real thing. I have work to do.
Sherlock, promise me.
What are you still doing here? Shouldn't you be off getting me a pardon or something? Like a proper big brother?
This is the proper big brother. Taking care of him.
Look after him. Please.
He cares so much. But this is bad.
Sherlock, hang on. Explain.
What happened to the
alive.
dog?
I said he was alive. I said he was back.
So he's dead.
Of course he's dead. He blew his own brains out. No one survives that. I just went to the trouble of an overdose to prove it. Moriarty is dead. No question. More importantly, I know exactly what he's going to do next.
Someone is pretending to be him.
Using his name and his
what it means.
his legacy to do stuff.
Flying
machines, these telephone contraptions? What sort of lunatic fantasy is that?
It was simply my conjecture of what a future world might look like and how you and I might fit inside it. In any case, I know I would be very much at home in such a world.
I think I would be.
I beg to differ. But then I've always known I was a man out of his time.
I love this. I love this so much.
Okay, stop fangirling, please.
Oh no, that's probably one of my favorite episodes. And I have several in this show, but...
I was right, the painting was important. It was all about the optic illusion. That was clever.
The painting?
In the periodic apartment, there was a painting of a woman looking for a glass and you can saw a skull with it.
Yeah.
Optic illusion.
I was wondering what painting you were referring to, and I thought you were talking about the waterfall one, and I was like, oh, yeah, of course it's important. It's the fall.
They kept showing the painting and behind Moriarty with a glimpse at the apartment.
And at the beginning we saw it from afar. It's a skull, but then when you close up, it's women.
It's a woman looking at herself in a mirror, in a glass.
Yeah. So, but holy shit, that was so good. You know, and I'll say it again, but this show is really, really well written, really well acted, really well thought out, really well and did it. And in this episode, I mean, everything was so great. All the references, all the little, you know, hints at the books, and also everything they did right and everything they mocked in our version. You know, because. And especially that last line, like, he's a man out of his time, basically, because Sherlock Holmes is such an old story, but they kind of modernized it in this show. Like, they took it and they placed it in our times, which was something that surprised me, and also something I liked in the first episode. Like, I was interested in how they were going to do this. And with this episode, I feel like we got to see everything they changed, everything they adapted, and all the work that went into this show. Because I mean, we can like this show without having ever read the stories, or seen the other movies and stuff, and like it and find it interesting. But it's incredible the amount of work that's been done in this show. Like, why is he smoking cigarettes? Because he used to smoke a lot. But then he's in modern times, this could be considered an addiction. But back in those days, smoking was a habit that pretty much everyone had. So. No one cared, but he was an addict in another sort of way back in the days, you know, stuff like that.
I don't know for you, but I do believe that maybe he used cigarettes as a replacement for...
I feel like, well, now we know for sure that he was an addict, but an intense one too.
Well, they did say it in the first episode of the first season, though, that it used to be an addict of strong drugs.
We never really knew for how long and how bad it was.
Do you remember the flashback was so young?
I love that Mycroft has always been there for him. We saw a lot of emotion from him in this episode, especially at the end in the plane, and I'm like, I love that Sherlock is trying to close himself off, especially when it comes to his brother, which leads me to believe that something did happen.
It is all regarding Redbeard. Redbeard, yeah.
That's the name of the dog.
Yeah.
It's been mentioned in the last episode too, and as that's his weakness. You know, that's his that's one thing that he could use as to blackmail him. Like, he mentioned it when he was looking for what to use against him. He mentioned the name, so something did happen. I don't think it's as easy as the dog died, but something happened, and Mycroft knows about it, and I think we're gonna discover it next season.
Something traumatic. What, he saw his dog being killed in front of his eyes. He had to kill it. He had to kill it.
No idea. I feel like after that happened, he closed himself off because he doesn't want to be weak anymore, and he sees emotions as weakness. We've said it several times, and I feel like he feels vulnerable opening himself up to people, which is incredible considering he opened himself up to Watson, to John, to a certain degree, but he still hides a lot from him.
Yeah.
So, like, the drug use and stuff, like, he's doing it alone, and he doesn't see that as a weakness. He sees that as a way for him to open his mind. But John, being a doctor and stuff, he never discussed it with him. So it's part of his, and he didn't tell him about his past either. So there is some things he keeps hidden from John. He's never opened himself up to anyone. I wonder what that's gonna look like if he ever does.
Oh.
But Mycroft being there for him, that really, that made me really happy.
Oh my god. Speaking of Mycroft, I said it several times during the episode, but it was way more funnier in the periodic time. Maybe that's the weight factor that made it like a little more comedic relief.
Well, he's making jokes and stuff in modern times too. I feel.
But they seem to be more sarcastic though.
I can't say I know. I cannot. I don't know what the Mycroft from the books is like. What I can theorize here is that it was a Mycroft born from the mind of Sherlock, and I think it made him happy to imagine his brother as a laughingstock. You know. Making bets about when he was going to die and him being in on it and being happy about it, that could have been a clue to what's going, that wasn't all in Sherlock's mind, because yes, he admitted that his brother was more intelligent, which is something I think he understands in real life, but then he had the power to make him into anything he wanted in his mind, so he had fun a little bit. Maybe that's what it was.
Maybe, probably.
Make him sound like more funny, make him look funnier, because I mean he's dying literally because he's too fat. So, and they are having fun discussing when it's gonna happen. So I think this was Sherlock having a trip. But and everything else that was so cool visually. And by the way, yeah, I said it in the episode, but timepieces, period pieces are amazing for setups.
Yeah.
For the look of the episode, for horror stuff like the bride and the old costumes. Wow.
The buildings, just
everything looks more dramatic for sure.
The feeling of it, yeah.
Yeah, I love that Sherlock basically went in his mind to solve such an old case without ever being there. But that's crazy, because if you think about it, that's the result of his drug use, and that's what his mind palace is.
Well, I can understand the use of an old case to use that as inspiration.
Solve an old case.
For a new one. I can understand that.
I never really thought that Moriarty was back because he died. We saw it, and in modern times they did get the body, right? That's what I couldn't remember.
Never saw it.
I couldn't remember in this episode when they mentioned, oh, we never recovered the body. I'm like, oh yeah, in this time period, no, because he fell down the waterfall. So you always have the hint that he might come back. But in our show, in this show, we saw him blow his brains out, and then they recovered the body.
But let's not forget that Irene Adler did use a body double to.
Yeah, but he was there. Yeah, but she didn't die in front of Sherlock.
Yeah.
Moriarty was in front of him, blew his own brains out. And I love also the fact that since he's never been able to beat him, he's always going to be there in his mind. He's always going to be this presence, this ghost that he won't be able to beat.
Sorry, I just cut you up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be surprised if, just for the sake of making him alive again, Sherlock create a fake Moriarty and do stuff with it. Yeah. No, not really be and portray Moriarty just to make him alive again. Do you understand what I mean?
No, not really. In his mind?
No, in real life. Like in the...
He's not the one that did the miss me thing.
I know he didn't do it. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does something like a split personality. You understand?
I don't think it's gonna go that far. We saw when he was trying to survive the bullet wound with that Mary when Mary shot him. Sorry, I can't speak today.
Me neither.
But yeah, when Mary shot him, we saw that he had a Moriarty in his mind that he was keeping locked up. He's got his ghost, his presence behind his back, but just looking over him always, because he never could beat him. It's something that was left open. It's a case that he never closed. So I think that's why he keeps him as a reminder that there could always be something he couldn't, solve in the future. If he faces a case he can't solve, he's got Moriarty right there, because that's the case he couldn't solve before. He's right there, tempting him, pushing him. Almost like, you can defeat me, but don't make that into a parody of me. Like, I'm better than that case. You can defeat that case, Yeah.
It's weird because the more I think about it, the more that Sherlock never technically beat anyone. He didn't beat Moriarty. He couldn't beat Magnuson. What can he do?
That's 2 out of a lot of bad guys in
Yeah,
this
but
show.
the big ones, he's not able to beat them. If you think about it.
I think Magnuson was different in a way that
You guys said that Magnuson was more like a Mycroft enemy, not more Sherlock.
yeah, it was Mycroft's enemy, but I feel like Magnuson was it wasn't about beating him more than it was about finding that knowledge, and he ended up finding out that it was all in his head, so he blew that head off. But with Moriarty, they were both on the roof, and unless he played Moriarty's game, his friends were all gonna die. So he was basically against a wall. He had nothing, there was nothing he could do. And he did manage to somehow work his way out of the case, but Moriarty still made the move, the last move to kill himself off, and that surprised Sherlock. As in with Magnuson, Sherlock did the last move. He shot him. Yes, maybe he didn't beat him as in, he couldn't figure out that it was all in his head until the end, and he was forced to kill him, but he did kill him.
True.
So the other guy didn't have the last laugh. Moriarty had the last laugh. He decided to kill himself and put Sherlock in a bad position. So that's why I think he never defeated Moriarty, and that defeat was way bigger than killing Magnuson.
Yeah.
But
True.
still, now that raises the question: who is behind that picture of Moriarty? Because that's why I knew last episode that he couldn't be there for real. First of all, impossible. But second of all, it was just a photo, an animated photo, so anyone could have done it. But it's someone that knows about Moriarty, knows about the influence he had.
Oh, imagine a twin brother.
It's never twins.
Sometimes it could be twins.
And speaking of the case,
I think there have been cases or stories about twins involving each other's.
oh yeah,
And did you
for sure.
know that they were twins technically?
For sure. I'm quoting Sherlock. But speaking of the case, I love all the everything that was in the original case, you know, women fighting for their rights and taking justice into their own hands because no one was ever gonna fight for them. Mary being this strong woman that, yes, society is pushing her down, but she's still trying to rise up. And John being an asshole, if you think about it. I was looking for the term. I was looking for a way to describe him because I know how I see it in my head in the period piece. But I can't explain it, like I can't put it into words. But I love that he's so like this paranoid soldier that is old-fashioned, yeah, let's say it like that. He's sort of old-fashioned even back in the day. You know, he's so hell-bent on everyone is our enemy, like how do you say that? Vive l'Angleterre, something like that.
Long live England?
Long live England, something like that, yeah. And I love that he was so hell-bent on his principles, like, oh, women can do anything, and he was like an old fart. I loved it. And Sherlock is way more open-minded because he doesn't care about social etiquettes. Here you go.
You're right.
Basically, that was a great episode.
Oh.
Sorry about the
I don't know
English.
about Yeah, I don't know about you, but speaking about the editing and the way that they shot every scene, it reminds me of like if I were watching a play.
With the narration also.
With the narration and all the this kept switching and transitioning with the backgrounds and the scenery. So like when I was just reading.
They adapted everything in this episode to fit the. Well, first of all, it was in Sherlock's head, so he played it, and we saw it play out. So that might be why you felt that way. Yeah. But I love that every single thing they adapted in this episode kind of reminded us of the books, first of all. The time period it was supposed to be in, every little hint about what changed through time. The characters.
We can't speak today.
I don't know what's going on. Everything they changed about the characters, every little habit they have, and we can make the connection if we never read the books. And I don't think I've ever read more than one story about Sherlock back when I was in high school. It's a long time ago.
You read stories of Sherlock in high school?
I think I did, yeah. Yeah, we were pretty advanced in school. But still, anyway, I know that even without the books, we can make connections with the show right now and appreciate all the work that's been done considering what it was supposed to be like, what the source material was. That was really well made. Really well made.
I got a question for you though. In his own mind palace, do you think that he imagined himself wearing the Daystalker hat because it was the time period, or because he secretly loved it?
I think he secretly loves it.
I think too.
Yeah, he does.
Alright then.
Okay, sorry again about how we babbled this episode. Like, I don't know.
We're buffering just like Netflix, guys.
When we've got, I mean, a teacher of mine once said that when you repeat yourself over and over again, and when you talk too fast to think about what you're saying and you're just babbling, it means that you really appreciated the work you're talking about. So
we really do appreciate it.
Exactly. So great episode. I'm really glad.
I think it's one of my favorites.
It's one of my favorites too. It's a bonus episode. Shit.
Oh, to me it's not. But it is not a bonus episode.
We'll talk about our favorites at the end of the actual series because we only have one season left.
Yes.
I'm not ready to say goodbye to this show.
Me neither.
Oh, okay. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode with us. If you want to see the first episode of the next season right away, it's going to be on Patreon soon. Check it out. And if not, just wait a week and it'll be on YouTube.
So we're going to see you then, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.